if you'd have been in Jerusalem that day? And what would you have been doing the next few days? The paradox of Palm Sunday is one that's hard for me to figure out. A celebration of Jesus as King, and then the events of Holy Week. Now Easter is easy to celebrate because Easter is at the heart of our Christian faith, the resurrection of Jesus, His victory over sin and death. But the big party was the week before. And how many people realized what was going on? In fact, I took this paradox so far that when I was in churches where I had associate pastors, I said, you take it this Sunday. Because the celebration I can deal with. And the reality of pain and all that comes out of Holy Week you can deal with. But when you put the two together, it seems like it was a premature celebration. 43 years ago, maybe 44 years ago, my brother, who is 10 years younger than I am, we decided to do some wilderness whitewater canoeing. I bought a canoe, we got our fishing stuff together, and we strapped things in the canoe, and my wife said I had to go take swimming lessons or I couldn't go, and I took swimming lessons and learned a little bit more how to stay alive in such situations, but the last word from my instructor at the YMCA was, wear your life jacket. And we, in northwest Wisconsin, near the old home place, we put in at the Namakagon River. And the Namakagon River a couple of days, and then into the St. Croix River and into some of the whitewater and the rapids there for a couple of days. We had a great time. About 3 hours into our canoe trip, we're in a part of the river that is narrower than about the size of the pews here. And it was not terribly fast, but there were branches down in trees and all of that. And we were feeling like we really knew how to handle that canoe. Well, you'll never guess what happened. There was one where the rock was just under the water, and we hit it, and instead of putting our paddles out this side and holding it, we both went this way, and the next thing I knew, I was underwater. Well, it was only 3 feet deep, but I was still underwater, and came up, not celebrating how good we were, but recognizing there was still much to do. And the only loud voices that there were my brother and I each were sure that the other one had caused us to tip over. We worked it out and made, that was the last time we got wet on those, on that 5 days. But the celebration was kind of premature when we first started to celebrate. And then reality hit. Reality. Now the church has historically been a place to celebrate. Every Sunday morning, every Sunday worship was a celebration of Easter. But Palm Sunday, it just seemed premature. It just seemed like they should have waited another week, but they didn't. But the church has historically been a place to celebrate. And you read the Old Testament, just a casual reading, and you will see how many issues were around the feasts and celebrations. For those poor peasants living in the Middle East, and most of them in poverty, it was these celebrations that bound life together. And they grew into times of grace and times of learning and times of hope. Read the Psalms. Praise God comes out time and time again. Time of celebrating. They knew how to celebrate. They didn't have to be told how to celebrate. In the New Testament, the church was a singing place. A place where celebrating was commonplace. Joy was at the heart of what it was like. Jesus turned the water into wine. And we might ask, why would he do that? A little understanding of weddings at that time. For the celebration would be up to a week. And it you ran out of wine, it would be a stain on that marriage and family for the years to come. For the celebration was a week where that husband and wife were owning the whole world. So Jesus was not only providing something for them to drink, he was saving a relationship and families and all that went with it. It was certainly a time to celebrate. The Palm Sunday still seems different to me. It seems like it's out of place. But then I remember that Jesus initiated it. He ordered the donkey to be brought. It was as if he sent out invitations to everyone to be there. And they were there. And as they entered the city, he rode on this donkey that had never been ridden before. Now there's something unique about that and that honor. But usually when a leader was coming into a city, they would ride on a white horse. A symbol of victory, a symbol of power. And the donkey was a symbol of servitude. The parade and the responses seemed to have been spontaneous. Palms were thrown down, coats were thrown down. It was welcome to a king. The crowd was celebrating a victory when seemingly death and defeat was just around the corner. In a few days, the rider on the donkey would be sitting not on a throne, but hanging on a cross. Palm Sunday is a paradox. Something just doesn't fit. It's a little bit like a tuxedo in a bowling alley. How can you be celebrating when you see what is coming in a few days? It's contradictory. Hail the king! And the king is executed. A parade in his honor with everyone wanting to get close enough for a high five, and then in a few days abandoned. Celebration, and then defeat. Put yourself on the donkey in Jesus' place. Everyone is celebrating, but not knowing what they're celebrating. It's a little bit like going to a party for someone that you don't know. Something seems out of place. He knew the parade. The jubilation was not the end. He knew it was not even the victory. Let's look again at the crowd. Bruce Larson, a Christian writer of some 20 or 30 years ago, tells the story of a missionary returning from Africa after 40 years of service on a ship with the United Nations ambassador who was coming to New York after a 6-week junket to South Africa. As the ship came into the harbor, fireboats appeared and sprouted water in the air, and tugboats tooted, and bands came alongside and played, and there was a great celebration. The missionary said, I began to feel sorry for myself. 40 years for Jesus, and no one cares that I'm coming home. And at that moment, he seemed to hear Jesus say, well done, good and faithful servant. But a month later, he shared with another friend, I truly believe God was saying something to me then. But he confessed, it would have been nice if there had been a parade. It would have been nice if someone would have said, just once, let's have a party in your honor. Parades have an impact. Soldiers come back from the Persian Gulf, come back from the Korean conflict and World War II, and there are parades, and they respond to the reception. And that impact gives them a sense of strength and hope, and maybe it was worth it. But I'm of the Vietnam generation. When soldiers came home and didn't wear their uniforms over the divisions that were rampant in America. Parades can have an impact. They can feed our egos. The awards are nice and the honors. But it's not only those who are being honored, it is all of us who come together. For in our coming together, we recognize that there is something powerful happening there. It breaks the tedium of life. If I give you a parade, maybe you'll give one to me. And all Jerusalem turned out. The question for me is, did Jesus do the parade wave like this? We don't know. But most of us believe he could see around the corner as to what was coming. Let me suggest that parades and parties are not always what they seem to be. Behind the waves and the smiles from the convertibles, there are thoughts. One may be saying, I wish this was over. All honors are not exactly what they're seen. At a retirement party, the company gives a gold watch to the boss. The speeches are made. But what is really going on is the old boss is gently being pushed aside, and the parades are a way of saying to him, you're out of the way now, we'll get along just fine. It's about time there was some new leadership and everyone will smile and, well, maybe I'll get a promotion. Parades have a way of no longer taking the ones seriously who they're honored for. We've done the parade, now let's get on with life. When we are honored with a parade, we need to keep it in perspective. The parade is not the end of the story. The parade is not solving any of the problems. A parade is the result of what has happened before. It is not the same. I heard the story of a man who was honored with an honorary degree at a university. And in introducing him, the president said, the man you are honoring today is a great man. You might even say he's a very great man. But I'm going to say he's a very, very great man. And the crowd all cheered. Driving home after the ceremony, the man said to his wife, Dear, how many very, very great men do you think there are in the world? And she said, one less than you think, my dear. I think she had a hold of what some parties are about. When I was a young pastor, I got a call from the district superintendent who said, you're moving from 2-point charge in the thumb to be the senior associate at Royal Oak First. It was a church with 3 pastors, a very distinguished senior pastor who was a friend, and it was quite an honor, I thought. And my district superintendent explained all that. He said, you'll be getting a call from the district superintendent in East Detroit, and he will tell you more about it. My head was bigger than it should have been then, so one of the questions I asked was, exactly why was I chosen to go there? And this pastor, politically astute and otherwise, he waxed eloquent about gifts I didn't even know I had, but I was certainly willing to accept them. 3 months later, I went to annual conference. I went up to this district superintendent thinking that he could continue the conversation and some of my friends would hear it. He didn't even remember or know who I was. Parades have a way of sometimes getting a little out of touch with reality. Life goes on after the parade. For those in the crowd, it was back to work, a nice interlude, but nothing significant. For Jesus, we know the rest of the story. The parade was not an entrance point into the kingdom. What was the parade? What was the parade? Could it be that the parade was part of the prevenient love and grace that God was bestowing upon those that were there? It was giving them a baseline of what was going to come on Easter. It was giving them a new look at Jesus. In the parade, Jesus was asking for a decision they were unable to make at that day, for they were not there when the crucifixion was happening. They were not there when the trials were happening. But how much clearer was their understanding of Jesus a week, a month, a year from then? How many of them said he was right? He was unique. He was going to conquer, not in the way of the soldiers and the army, but he was unlike any of them. And that is the power of Easter. I have come to set you free. Will you follow? They threw down their coats and they sang praises. But the reality was that in the months that followed, they experienced the loving forgiveness of God whom they had known through Jesus Christ. The failure of celebration. I'm not sure Palm Sunday was as much of a failure as I read into it. where it was a preparation for the days that were going to come. It was a reflection on the reality of where most people were. But Jesus took his stand and he saw through the palms and the coats and the nice words that were being said. And he helped us understand that the story does not end with a parade. I am not saying that parades and parties are not important. They are at the heart of how we celebrate. But the real celebration was the reality that came on Easter Sunday, when Jesus the Christ was victorious over sin and death. Palm Sunday, a paradox? Maybe it's beyond our understanding, but what we do know is that living on this side of Easter, we have everything to celebrate. To God be the glory. And let us prepare our hearts and our minds in this coming week, not only for the reality of the events that we reflect on that bring pain to our souls, but on the celebration or the resurrection of Jesus the Christ, who was victorious over sin and death. To God be the glory.